Buy Sri Lanka's best internet package for online learning and online working with many amazing offers. Call 1212 for more information. Sri Lanka Telecom.
Lanka tukuma වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
In your headlines tonight, clarion call. President Gotabaya tells the UN Biodiversity Summit his government is committed to leaving a better environment for future Sri Lankans.
There is a critical need for a transformation and change in the relationship between nature and people.
Give us something to work with. At the Human Rights Council, Sri Lanka calls on victims of alleged intimidation and reprisals to lodge formal complaints with the Sri Lankan authorities.
Sri Lanka wishes to make an invitation to the parties concerned to make formal complaints to law enforcement authorities so that action can be taken to investigate the alleged incident.
Ifs and buts, ex-IGP tells Easter Commission foreign intel warning wasn't taken seriously due to intelligence wordplay. Presidential circus. The heated first public debate between US President Donald Trump and rival Joe Biden labelled the worst in recent times.
I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar. Sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen,
All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 1st of October 2020.
නව sunlight sakura. දැන් දෙකුකල් පවතින sakura මල් සුවඳින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, addressing the United Nations Biodiversity Summit yesterday, gave assurance that the Sri Lankan government is committed to protecting and sustainably managing the country's natural resources. The president added that doing so will in turn contribute to its unique and rich biodiversity and protect and pass a healthy environment onto the country's future generations as best as it could.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday delivered a virtual address at the United Nations Biodiversity Summit held under the theme Urgent Action on Biodiversity for Sustainable Development. The summit will provide an opportunity for heads of state and governments and other leaders to raise awareness towards the development of the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, which will be adopted at the 15th Conference of Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity in 2021.
Sri Lanka is deeply committed to uphold the overarching spirit of the Convention on Biodiversity. There is a critical need for a transformation and change in the relationship between nature and people and contemporary global environmental governance. As a member of the Commonwealth of Nations, Sri Lanka endorsed the Commonwealth Blue Charter in 2018, and as such we will champion Commonwealth Blue Charter Action Group on mangrove ecosystems and livelihoods. Further, the Colombo Declaration on Sustainable Nitrogen Management was adopted last year. We as world leaders must better manage nitrogen, ensuring the sustenance of humankind. Sri Lanka is home to two UNESCO Natural Heritage Sites, the Central Highlands and the Singaraja Rainforest Reserve. We are also proud of our 6 sites recognized under the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. Sri Lanka firmly stands committed to protect and sustainably manage these natural assets that contributes to our unique and rich biodiversity. We have been mindful of conserving ecosystems to the highest extent possible, even during the redesigning of cities and urban areas. The wetland parks that we have created in cities, especially in and around our capital, Sri Jayawardenepura Kotte, are home to an array of plant and animal species, offering a mini rainforest experience within crowded city. The ancient governance of Sri Lanka was built on the concept that the ruler is never the owner of the land. He is merely its caretaker on behalf of his countrymen and all living beings. This is the very principle that my government has adopted in our development agenda. As mere trustees of this planet and its resources, we must resolve to protect what is in our trust, pass it to future generations as best as we could.
Enjoy a very smooth shave with the Bic Easy 2 razor. Bic Easy 2.
Sri Lanka's acting permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Derana Mendes, delivered a statement at the 45th session of the Human Rights Council in response to the report of the Secretary General on cooperation with the United Nations, its representatives and mechanisms in the field of human rights. The statement pertained to alleged intimidation visits, surveillance, complaints of harassment and reprisals referred to in the report, to which the government called on the parties concerned to make a formal complaint or formal complaints rather to law enforcement authorities or to independent national institutions for action to be taken.
Acting permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Derana Mendes, rejected allegations of intimidating visits, surveillance, complaints of harassment and reprisals against human rights defenders in Sri Lanka, alleged in a UNHRC report. Mendes stated that other than routine security networks in the interests of national security, security forces and intelligence agencies are not engaged in monitoring any specific group, and added that any country compromising its national security interests amidst looming sophistication of strategies of radical and extreme elements is bound to face regrettable consequences.
The government of Sri Lanka wishes to make the following observations with regard to the reference contained in the annual report of the Secretary General presented today. With regard to alleged intimidating visits, surveillance, complaints of harassment and reprisals referred to in the report, Sri Lanka wishes to make an invitation to the parties concerned to make formal complaints to law enforcement authorities or to independent national institutions such as the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka or the National Police Commission, so that action can be taken to investigate the alleged incident. The government has already publicly refuted these allegations and is committed to protecting and promoting freedom of expression and civil society space and ensuring that complaints received on alleged attacks against journalists, human rights defenders and civil society are investigated and prosecuted. It is also reiterated that apart from operating routine security networks in the interest of national security, particularly after the devastating Easter Sunday terrorist attacks, the security forces and intelligence agencies are not engaged in monitoring any specific group of people in the country. We believe for any country compromising its national security interests amidst looming sophistication of strategies of radical and extreme elements world around is bound to face regrettable consequences. Hence, Sri Lanka requests all parties to be mindful of that ground reality in this context.
A program entitled Learning for Empathy Through School Education was launched in the country recently, together with the UNESCO National Commission and the New Delhi Zonal Office, with full financial support provided by the Japanese government. The program was launched with the objective of practically inculcating empathic qualities in the school system in order to achieve sustainable education goals.
Empathy is awareness of the feelings and emotions of other people. It's a key element of emotional intelligence, the link between self and others, because it is how we as individuals understand what others are experiencing, as if we were feeling it ourselves. Empathy is learned completely when the learner is motivated to act positively toward the other person. Empathy is a concept that is highly relevant to education, especially the education reforms we are envisaging. In school classrooms, we want our teachers to show empathy to the children who are not listening to lessons. They may be not listening for a variety of reasons. Think of those who come to school without breakfast. We have a responsibility to pursue the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations.
Japan is very honored to be a partner of this truly important project. Through this project, teachers and students could learn and gain empathy for others, transcending different values, religions, and cultures, which contributes to preventing hatred and violent extremism. Japan is also committed to achieving sustainable development goals and taking further steps both domestically and internationally to fully implement the 2030 agenda, leaving no one behind. It is a great honor to support this unique project initiated by UNESCO that aims to fostering peace and sustainable society through school education.
Today, Sri Lanka marks World Children's Day as well as the International Day of Older Persons. World Children's Day is celebrated this year under the theme Let's Build Our Nation, while for the elders of the world, it marks the beginning of the decade of healthy aging. Although we mark these days every year reflecting how we can make this world better for our children and elders, the problems faced by both sections of our society have escalated into social crisis. Today is World Children's Day as well as the UN International Day of Older Persons. Reflecting on the International Day of Older Persons, today in fact is the first day of the decade of healthy aging, a World Health Organization-supported UN initiative to bring together governments, civil society and other stakeholders and partners to promote healthy aging across the world, including in the WHO Southeast Asia region. To meet the challenge of an aging world and region, the WHO continues to support countries to promote healthy aging via a multi-sector, whole-of-society approach. Further, as the WHO's Global Strategy and Action Plan on Aging and Health emphasizes, healthy aging is about more than just the absence of disease. Rather, it must include the active fostering of older people's intrinsic capacity and functional ability so they can do what they value. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka also celebrated World Children's Day today under the theme Let's Build Our Nation. Of the current world population of 7.8 billion people, 26% are children under the age of 16. The world child population exceeds 260 million. In Sri Lanka, children between the ages 0 to 15 form a little over 24% of our population. Hence, the question must be asked, what is the current position of our children when it comes to their security and well-being? According to reports of the Stop Child Cruelty Trust, in the first 6 months of 2020 alone, 5,292 cases of child sexual abuse have been reported, and a child is sexually molested every 2 hours. Further, poverty, child labor and domestic violence also remain a major issue in the country. It is evident that despite the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child being ratified in 1989, children around the world are yet to be given the necessary protection and support required to become responsible future citizens. Delivering his World Children's Day message, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa stated, quote, "Our children are the future of the nation. It is the responsibility of the entire society to create an environment for them to develop their skills while enriching them with knowledge. As much as we give importance to nurture children's physical and mental health, we must also ensure they are brought up to be virtuous adults." Unquote. He added, quote, "My sole purpose is to build a country where citizens conquer both physical and mental poverty. It is guaranteed that in such a country, children will live in peace, happiness and contentment. Only then can we make the theme of this year's World Children's Day, Let's Build Our Nation, a reality." Unquote. In his message, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa urged policymakers and adults to join in protecting and preserving the future of our world. He added that ensuring protection, education, opportunity, guidance and freedom is key in guaranteeing that our children grow up in a setting that will not hinder them in any way. On the occasion of the World Children's and Elders' Day, a heartwarming event was organized by the Department of Prisons today. This is how the inmates of the Vataraka outdoor camp in Padukka spent time playing with their children. Some inmates saw their children for the first time. As former President of South Africa Nelson Mandela says, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In more news, former IGP Pujit Jayasundara says that he did his best upon receiving the intelligence warning document prior to the Easter attack, but was afraid of the criticism he would have been subjected to if he had leaked the information to the public. This was in response to a question raised by the chairman of the Easter Commission as to whether he displayed a lack of concern towards the lives of the innocent devotees that were to frequent the targeted churches on the fateful day.
Former Inspector General of Police Pujit Jayasundara testified before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry investigating the Easter Sunday attacks for the 7th day today. At the outset, the chairman of the commission asked the witness, "If you, as the Inspector General of Police, received information about a plot to assassinate the President, what would you have done in such a situation?" The former IGP responded, "I would brief the President on the information regardless of the situation and would be highly concerned with regards to the source of the information." To this, the chairman of the Presidential Commission asked him, "Based on information provided to you by the Chief of National Intelligence that prominent churches were being targeted, were you not concerned enough to come up with a plan to save the lives of innocent devotees who were planning on attending the services during that period?" Jayasundara replied, "I did the best I could in this regard, and if I leaked this intelligence as the IGP, I would have been questioned as to why I did so." The document provided by the State Intelligence Service stated Catholic churches and the Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka were named as targets. However, the document contained the word "but" in the sentence, which created some doubts about the information's validity. In response, the chairman of the commission stated, "You were the IGP with years of experience when you received this information. Can you ever recall, through your years of experience, whether terrorists had ever planned an attack and released their list of targets and the exact times before? Have they ever revealed this information on social media?" To this, the former IGP replied, "No, Your Honour, they don't do that." The commission then asked the witness, "You were holding on to the word 'but'. However, did you not think at that time that the terrorists would not hesitate like you did at the time? Why are you still bringing up this word?" In reply, Jayasundara stated, "What was I supposed to do when my instructions from President Maithripala Sirisena, Pujit, don't carry out open investigations. Let the SIS handle this. These were my instructions."
More arrests have been made by law enforcement authorities as part of the government's war on drugs and underworld activities. This included a member of the Navagattegama Pradeshya Sabha who was arrested yesterday in an illegal gambling den. With that, here's a roundup on the latest arrests.
During search operations in Nitambua, police officers arrested 4 burglars last night with jewellery worth 300,000 rupees, 2.4 grams of heroin and a television in their possession. Further, 4 mobile phones and a sum of 85,000 rupees in cash were also seized from the suspects. Meanwhile, in Maligawatha, the Dematagode police arrested 2 suspects loitering near the Maligawatha apartment complex, where a search found 90.36 grams of heroin in their possession. In the meantime, search operations worked off in the areas of Udamulla and Delkanda led to the arrest of 5 suspects, including drug racketeer Delkanda Usa, netting a combined total of 70 grams of heroin found in their possession. Further, the Mount Lavinia police arrested 2 suspects in Dehiwala last evening in possession of 10 grams of crystal methamphetamine, commonly known as ice, and 2.1 grams of heroin. Police also arrested a 62-year-old suspect in Thanumalvilla for possessing 95 kilograms of Kerala cannabis. In another development, a Sri Lanka Podujana Perumana Pradeshya Sabha member in Navagattegama was arrested yesterday while engaged in gambling. Police revealed that the suspect has a string of previous arrests for the same offence. Meanwhile, a suspect was arrested by the Malvatuhiripitiya police in Alhena Gampaha with 15 miniature packets containing 1.85 grams of heroin. The suspect had hidden the packets of heroin inside a piece of cake. In the meantime, the Crime Investigation Unit of the Negombo Division arrested the suspect in the Dagona area this morning with over 500 grams of ice in his possession.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the government is fully committed to giving its fullest attention towards the health and well-being of Sri Lanka's children. He made this comment while addressing the World Children's Day celebrations that worked off at the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital today.
A meeting to discuss the issues faced by the country's excise officers was worked off last evening at the Temple Trees under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. During the meeting, the Prime Minister instructed the officials to provide transfers only to qualified officials by halting transfers that have been made with political influence. Furthermore, Prime Minister Rajapaksa also instructed the appointment of a joint committee to restructure the excise department. Meanwhile, the inaugural ceremony granting the government's health insurance cover, Buduput Suraksha, for 15,000 Buddhist monks was also worked off today at the Temple Trees and was attended by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Accordingly, the special insurance cover was presented to several members of the Buddhist clergy by the Premier at the event. In another event held today, Prime Minister Rajapaksa also laid the foundation stone for a 9-story building and a new intensive care and surgical ward complex at the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital. Furthermore, he also declared open 2 new operating theatres at the hospital. The Premier then also participated in the World Children's Day celebrations organised in line with the 125th anniversary of the hospital. What's more, the launch of the hospital's website and the introduction of a toll-free hotline 1390 to book appointments for specialist doctors and for other clinical services was also worked off during the day.
මේ නුවරත් ළමාරුහල් අඩුගානේ එක පළාතකට එකක් වශයෙන්වත් සාසු යුතුයයි මම තරයේ විශ්වාස කරනවා. ඒකම දරුවන්ගේ නිරෝගීකම වැදගත් වෙනවා. මොකද දරුවෝ තමයි අනාගතේ මේ රට බාර ගන්න ඉන්න නායකයින්. අපි යෝජනා කරනවා අධ්‍යාපන මන්ත්‍රීතුමාටත් මේ පාසල් වලට කැඳ වීදුරුවක් ශක්තිමත් පානයක් ලබා දීමට පියවර ගන්න සෑම දරුවෙකුටම. ඉතින් මේ නිසා අපේ කාලය තුලදී දරුවන් පිළිබඳ විශේෂ අවධානයක් යොමු කරමින් අපි කටයුතු කරන්න සූදානම් බව මතක් කළ යුතුව තියෙනවා.
In a separate development, former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Dr. Saman Veerasinghe, was appointed as an advisor to the Prime Minister. Dr. Veerasinghe also previously served as the presidential advisor during the Prime Minister's presidential tenure from 2010 to 2015.
We'll return after this short commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back in your business news. According to the central bank's inflation report for the month of September, year-on-year food inflation decreased to 11.5% during the month from 12.3% in August. Year-on-year non-food inflation, however, increased to 0.9% in September 2020 from 0.8% in August 2020. This has been attributed to price increases observed in both the food and non-food categories.
Headline inflation, as measured by the year-on-year change in the Colombo Consumer Price Index, marginally decreased to 4% in September 2020 from 4.1% in August 2020. This was driven by the statistical effect of the high base that prevailed in September 2019. Further, year-on-year food inflation decreased to 11.5% in September 2020 from 12.3% in August, whereas year-on-year non-food inflation increased to 0.9% in September from 0.8% in August. The change in the CCPI, measured on an annual average basis, also decreased to 4.7% in September 2020 from 4.8% in the previous month. Meanwhile, the monthly change of the CCPI was recorded at 0.7% in September 2020. This was due to price increases observed in items of both food and non-food categories. Accordingly, within the food category, prices of vegetables, coconuts, fresh fruits and big onions increased in September 2020. Within the non-food category, prices of items in alcoholic beverages, tobacco and narcotics and transport subcategories increased during the month. The year-on-year core inflation, which reflects the underlying inflation in the economy, declined to 2.9% in September from 3.2% in August. Moreover, annual average core inflation also declined to 3.6% in September from 3.8% in August.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanila Fernando. Have a good night.